This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 120th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode coming to you live from the Reviewing Network studios. This is the Reviewing Network Live, our weekly wrap-up of the world of entertainment news. And yes, once again, it was a very busy week for the news in general. Well, technically, it was really one major story coming off of the big story we covered last week. And there was a bunch of other stories I wanted to cover, too. But I figure, the big story this week was the merging of... I'm watching the Vikings-Cowboys game, and Jordan Addison with a big throw down the field for a big first down in there, first and goal, down 14-7. This is not a Sunday Night NFL rewatch, so gotta keep my focus here. But yeah, this week's episode is mostly going to contain a lot of stories covering from the last week, which I held off on because of the big breaking story about Netflix and Warner Brothers agreeing to a deal. But that saga continues because Paramount is not done yet, and we'll get to them in just a little bit here. So we have a lot to cover here on this show, and nice throw down the field, too. But, okay, put my focus on the show. Here. But anyway, let's get to what we usually start off here, and that is with the weekend box office, which was not that impressive overall, but there was one movie that I really do feel like was unfairly criticized, because I saw it today. And I'll get to that, because it's not in the top 5, but we'll get to that after we cover it. But, the top 5 is pretty much movies that have been out already, stuff that's just sitting there while Avatar and SpongeBob and The Housemaid are waiting around the corner next week. But, number 5, once again, is Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which dropped 31% from last week, 32% to be exact, $2.3 million. I gotta round this up, $2.4 million, $59.3 million after 5 weeks. If you count the worldwide totals, it's over $213 million. We've kind of touched on this movie already. This one we have not covered, number 4, Duhundra, which just came out last week. And I'm guessing it's one of those, Bollywood RRR type of movies. It's described as a star-studded saga inspired by incredible true events set in the gritty criminal vein of Underworld with a backdrop of Indian patriotism featuring action sequences, Shakespearean betrayals, and trade crafts of espionage. Last week it brought in $1.9 million, but evolved to bring in $3.5 million, even though it lost 14 theaters in the process. It actually gained 77% from last week, bringing its 2-week total now in the States to $7.9 million if you count the worldwide numbers. It hasn't really done a whole lot overseas. It's bought in $8.8 million. I know nothing about this movie, so I can't really tell you what exactly it is. All I can tell you is that it's a 3-hour, 34-minute movie. So if you want to sit through that, there you go. Then again, Avatar, Fire and Ash is going to be over 3 hours long, so maybe people do want to see that. I don't know. I know nothing about it, so let's move on to number 3 this week, which is Wicked for Good, which brought in $8.6 million this weekend, bringing its drop off to 50.7%. After 4 weeks, it's brought in $312.1 million domestically. Worldwide numbers, it's up to $467.9 million, basically $468 million. And if you want an update on how it did this weekend compared to last weekend and its 4th weekend, the original Wicked, we can take a look at the number here, and it is still down from the previous movie. It's after 4 weeks, Wicked had brought in $359.2 million, and as I mentioned, $312.1 million after 4 weeks for that movie in particular. So it's not looking good for Wicked for Good, trying to match the numbers of the previous movie. And I do say that seriously upset about it, because it was a really good movie. It was about as good as the original Wicked was. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to number 2, which was the number 1 movie last week, and really not much of a shocker at all that this had the drop-off that it was expected to have. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which brought in $19.5 million, dropping 70% from last week, bringing its 2-week total now to $95.5 million. If you count the worldwide totals, it's already over $173 million. It cost around $30 million, I believe it was. It was not a big budget movie overall, so yeah. Regardless, it's all profit from this point going forward, and Blumhouse definitely needed it. They needed that and Black Phone 2 to be as successful as they were after the year that they've had in general here. So they're all good to go on that front there, so no problems with that whatsoever. Now let's turn the attention over to the number 1 movie, which is back from number 1 after Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out last week. It took the top spot. Zootopia 2, which dropped 39.4%, but still brought in $26.3 million, bringing its 3-week total now to $258.9 million domestically, and is actually $58 million ahead of what the original Zootopia is opening back in March of 2016 after 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks in the original Zootopia's run, it brought in $200.9 million, and now with Zootopia 2, it is now at $258 million, and it has now crossed the $1 billion mark this year. 1.136 billion, and is right up there with Lilo and Stitch. Disney, they've not had the best year overall, but they still have had 2 of the biggest hits of the year worldwide, because Lilo and Stitch was number 1, is what's at the top, as well as Zootopia 2. So it's not been a bad year overall. Plus, we've got Avatar: Fire and Ash coming out this week, so that should definitely help the numbers overall for Disney in general after what has been a very sluggish year for them in general in terms of the movies they put out, and especially with the news that they keep finding themselves involved in. But I digress. Like I said, this weekend was basically just about filling as many seats as you can before the avalanche of movies coming up for Christmas, for the week before Christmas, because, of course, we got Avatar: Fire and Ash, which is expected to do really well. The SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants also comes out, which I'm very curious to see how that one's going to do. And also, I'm curious about The Housemaid, too. These are 3 movies I'm very curious about. 2, I have higher expectations than others with the SpongeBob movie and also The Housemaid. Avatar: Fire and Ash, there's nothing about it that really makes me say that this is going to be any different from the other Avatar movies. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a big hit, but is it going to be any good, really? Especially considering the last movie was literally just a copy and paste of the previous movie. I mean, the visuals are nice and all, but I want a story here, people. I want something that actually is going to give me a reason why this Avatar franchise deserves to be saved and all that at this point. Because, yeah, the visuals are nice and all, but you keep doing the same story over and over and over again. Yeah, you're gonna repeat yourself to the point where people will not want to come to your movie anymore. I mean, that's just my thinking behind it overall. But in terms of new releases, a lot of them were outside the top 5 in general. We had the remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, which brought in $1.1 million outside the top 10. And I don't think this probably did not have a big budget overall. I could have sworn this was also released by the same company that put out... it is. The same company that put out the Terrifier series, Cineverse. Brought in $1.1 million. It does not say, however, what the budget on this was, but I can't imagine this was that expensive overall. And it did well enough just because of the fact that it should be a small budgeted movie. There is an audience for the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, and it has good reviews overall. So it probably did very, very good business for Cineverse in general here. We had a couple of re-releases. The Shining, I didn't even know came out in theaters this week, but they re-released in theaters for, I'm guessing, maybe the 45th anniversary, which brought in $1.6 million in 400 theaters. Not bad. Not bad for a movie that didn't have as much as a big marketing push in general. But How the Grinch Stole Christmas also came out this weekend for the 25th anniversary of that movie, bringing in $1.9 million for its re-release. With that one, I remember having a preview in front of Back to the Future. And people are coming out to see that movie for the 25th anniversary of that. I didn't get a chance to go out there and see it, unfortunately, but I did go and see the last movie I want to cover here, which really I think is getting way too much backlash on it, honestly. And it's actually at number 7 on the list, and that is Ella McKay, which is the new James L. Brooks movie. It's a movie. It's his first movie he's made since How Do You Know, and it's about an idealistic young woman played by Emma Emma Mackey, who juggles her family and work life in a comedy about the people you love and how to survive them. Now, this brought in $2.1 million, and the budget on this is $35 million, but I think Disney's biggest mistake on this movie was opening this to a wide audience, to a wide release, when this should have been a limited release, and then later on down the road, as the buzz begins to build, then you go ahead and put the movie out in a wider release. But no, they put this out in 2,500 theaters on its opening weekend, and that's been a lot of the problems with these awards prestige movies, which is this is supposed to be an awards prestige movie, and it just didn't work out overall, unfortunately. And you're hearing all the backlash right now. You're hearing everybody talking about it being, one of the worst movies of the year. It's one of James L. Brooks' worst movies. It's terrible. It's absolute garbage. Which, let me be the first to tell you that I saw How Do You Know? That was garbage. That was a movie that didn't work strictly because it was just a movie that was just nothing but people that you hated. And it was a movie that was ballooned up by its budget of $120 million, when none of that money should have come to play in that movie. No, you didn't like any character in that movie. It was the last movie that Jack Nicholson starred in, and it was just a terrible mess of a movie from a story angle, from a character perspective. Yeah, it's a terrible movie. This one, on the other hand, it got thrashed by critics, but I'm here to tell you that critics be damned, I actually kind of enjoyed this movie. Now, I'm not going to say it's a classic movie. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece in the vein of James L. Brooks' other great movies that he's been involved in. I mean, James L. Brooks is a guy who very rarely makes crappy movies or TV shows. Like, he's been involved with some stuff that hasn't worked, like How Do You Know, as I mentioned before, and even ambitious ideas like I'll Do Anything, which is a movie that was mostly okay, but felt like it could have been a whole lot better. That was the movie where it was billed as a musical, but they got rid of all the songs, and because they got rid of all the songs in general, that movie fell apart here. But this movie did not fall apart. This felt more like James L. Brooks going back to what he did before with the movies that he did in the past, like Terms of Endearment, Broadcast News, and As Good as It Gets, Spanglish. Like movies where you can tell he was trying his best to get back on track with that. I don't think it worked all the way through. There's definitely parts of it where I really do feel like it wasn't as strong as it could have been, but it's nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. It's got like a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. A Metacritic, it's at 37 out of 100. It's got a B-. You're hearing people talking about it being the worst movie of one of the worst movies of the year. It's not even close to that. I've seen a lot worse movies, big movies that people praised that are much worse than this movie is. This movie is not that bad. The casting, I think, is really good. You like all these characters overall. And like I said, it felt like James L. Brooks coming back to what made him work in the first place. Now, granted, it didn't work all the way through, but it's a movie where I actually did like a lot of it more. I love the casting of this movie. Emma McKay was really good as the title character. You got great performances by Jamie Lee Curtis, Kamala Nanjiani, Io Edeberry, Julie Kavner, Rebecca Hall, Albert Brooks, Woody Harrelson. Even Tracy Ullman shows up in this movie too. I mean, this is a movie that is good. It's not great. It's not a movie that I'm going to say is up there with the best of his work overall, but it felt more like he was coming back into form of what he wanted to do the most. This wasn't another How Do You Know, where you hated everybody in here. This is a movie that worked for me because you got invested in the characters, you got invested in what James L. Brooks was trying to do with it, and I thought it was really good. I thought it was an enjoyable movie. I would say at the most it's a low matinee, but I liked it. I thought it was actually pretty good. I'm not going to say it's a classic by any means necessary, but it's definitely a lot better than people make it out to be. And I think it's going to be a movie that probably... someone said that it probably should have went to streaming, and I can't argue with that overall. But again, I feel like Disney kind of took the wrong approach to this by releasing it as wide as they did. It should have been one of those limited release movies at first, and then you build the audience for it, and then you open it in wide release in January, after the holidays are over, and then you get the audience to come into it. And by doing it the way they did, I think they really put themselves into a corner here, but in the end, it won't matter in the end, because they're going to make their money back in no time with what Zootopia 2 is doing, and what Avatar Fire and Ash is going to do next week, so... But... seek this movie out, people. It actually is a lot better than people make it out to be. Ella McKay actually is really good. I actually enjoyed it a lot. I was actually really surprised I kind of enjoyed it more than a lot of people would. And I feel like it's going to be one of those movies that I'm going to defend to the very end, because you're going to hear people talking about it in a couple weeks as one of the worst movies of the year. No. Let me tell you people something. I've seen bad stuff. I've seen stuff like a Minecraft movie and Jurassic World Rebirth. The Electric State, The Ice Cube, War of the Worlds, Hurry Up Tomorrow, Smurfs, Oh What Fun, Wolfman, Happy Gilmore 2, You're Cordially Invited, Freakier Friday, Megan 2.0. All of those, and many others, are much worse than Ella McKay even comes close to. This is not a bad movie. It's more of a run-of-the-mill film for the year, but it's definitely not as bad as people make it out to be. And I was going to do this for a Talking About the Movies episode, but I just ran out of time to do it today, so there will still be another Talking About the Movies episode coming up later this week. I'm going to do the best movie-going experiences, which I should have done yesterday, but because I got distracted by the snow and all that, I had to do the Time About the Christmas episode too. Yeah, just my schedule got in the way of it all. Yeah, we got a lot of snow up here yesterday, and I'll tell you this much. Apparently, the people that are doing the job did the job yesterday didn't do a very good job, because I looked out the window a couple of times when the trucks came around. They didn't plow our snow one time during yesterday. They just threw rock salt on there, and then they just went on their merry way, and the snow kept piling on and on and on. It's just like what are we paying these people for? Honestly, it makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, we got a lot of snow here. It's winter time. It's Christmas time, and I love it. I love the snow. I'm that guy that's like I'm like that meme with the guy walking around in a sweatshirt and the sweatpants and short pants in the snow. That's me. Like I'm like Elsa from Frozen. The cold doesn't bother me anyway, and it's like 10 degrees outside right now. So anyway, enough rambling on here. We cover the box office in general, so let's go ahead and get to the major news stories from the last couple of weeks. And we'll start off, of course, with this week's biggest story, with the continuation of the war between Warner Brothers, Netflix, and Paramount. So you knew this was going to happen as soon as the weekend was over. And I kind of mentioned it last week that don't be surprised if Paramount isn't going to sneak around and try to do something here. But lo and behold, it wasn't until the following morning after this last episode I did that we got the news that we were expecting to. It says that Paramount on Monday announced it has commenced an all-cash tender offer to acquire all of the outstanding shares of Warner Bros. Discovery for $30 per share. An operation, it says, equates to an enterprise value of $108 billion. The aggressive, although not wholly unexpected move, is an attempt to pry Warner Bros. Out of the arms of Netflix. The Paramount offer is for the entity of Warner Bros. Discovery, providing shareholders $18 billion more in cash than the Netflix consideration. WBD's board of directors' recommendation of the Netflix transaction over Paramount's offer is based on an illusory prospective valuation of global networks that is unsupported by the business fundamentals, the company said this morning. The hostile offer, which takes the case directly and publicly to WBD shareholders, follows a contentious auction that sees the media giant held by CEO David Zaslav reject successful bids from the David Ellison Company, and last Friday announced a deal with an equity value of $72 billion, enterprise value $82.7 billion, to sell the Warner Brothers assets to Netflix for $27.75 a share in cash and stock. WBD would first spin off its linear TV business into a separate public company in Q3 2026. The would-be partners expect the Warner Brothers deal to take 12 to 18 months to close, pending regulatory approval. Paramount's proposed transaction is for the entirety of WBD, including the global network segment. So yeah, this is kind of something we've been expecting all the way through, and you knew that Paramount was not going to go way up, was not going to go down like that. And even though the belief is that Netflix will still go ahead and win this, it just feels like Paramount's going to do everything they can to try to get Warner Brothers. No matter how hard they try, they're not going to let this go no matter what. And I think it's very hilarious how Paramount is spending all this money to do this. Meanwhile, other things they got rid of in the year 2025. They can't, it's too much money to lose. They're going to lose a lot of money on this whole thing. In fact, Stephen Colbert, in particular, made a joke about this most recently on the show this week, and I've got that right here.
On Friday, just Friday, right? Friday, we learned that Netflix put in a bid to acquire Warner Brothers for $82.7 billion. That's a lot of cash. You know what that means? Someone somewhere must be paying for their own Netflix accounts. But just yesterday morning, my beloved parent company, Paramount, reportedly launched a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers valued at $108 billion. Wow. I gotta say, if my company's got that kind of green, I'm sure they can afford to uncancel one of their best shows.
So yeah, I think this pretty much sums up everything that we already knew. Paramount basically kissed the ring of the Trump administration and basically lied about not being able to afford the late night host. If they're able to use all this money, $108 billion, to steal Warner Brothers away from Netflix. And look, neither one of these two deals is really good for Hollywood. But you know what? I would rather see Netflix take Warner Brothers away from Paramount, because we know the second that Paramount picks up Warner Brothers, they're just going to do the same thing to some of Warner Brothers' biggest Trump detractors. That's what I was trying to say. I lost my train of thought there for a second. Yeah, of course they're going to go after CNN. Of course they're going to go after John Oliver. Yeah, that's the thing that most people should be worried about. But no, everyone's just like, oh, Netflix can't buy Warner Brothers. Why? Well, because it's going to lose out on Hollywood's going to lose out on this. Hollywood's going to lose out if Paramount buys it too. Like, I don't know. Like, this whole thing is going to be one of the big things that we're going to be talking about well into the new year. And I still think Netflix will win it out in the end, but Paramount's going to do everything in their power to try to steal it from them. And yeah, it's going to be really messy, but you know what? It's going to make for a ton of fun stuff to talk about here on this show here. But like I said, neither one of these deals is good, but I trust more a Netflix and Warner Brothers merger than a Paramount Warner Brothers merger at this point. And anyone with a brain should be able to tell you the same thing, that should be the way it should go there. So, but it's not the only big bad deal that's going on in Hollywood right now. You should see what's happening over at the Mouse House. No, Disney isn't planning on buying any studios at this point, although we wouldn't be surprised if they do that. But no, it's much, much worse, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The premier animation destination in the world has officially entered the nth level of hell. The Walt Disney Company and OpenAI have reached an agreement for Disney to become the first major content licensing partner on Sora, OpenAI's short-form generative AI video platform. Yeah, the Mouse House has officially delved into AI, bringing their leaders in creativity and innovation together to unlock new possibilities in imaginative storytelling. As part of this new 3-year licensing agreement, Sora will be able to generate short user-promoted social videos that can be viewed and shared by fans, drawing from a set of more than 200 animated, masked, and creative characters from Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars, including costumes, props, vehicles, and iconic environments. In addition, ChatGPT images will be able to turn a few words by the user into fully generated images in seconds, drawing from the same intellectual property. This agreement does not include any talent likenesses or voices. Alongside the licensing agreement, Disney will become a major customer of OpenAI, using its APIs to build new products, tools, and experiences, including for Disney Plus and deploying ChatGPT for its employees. As part of the agreement, Disney will make a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI and receive warrants to purchase additional equity. $1 billion is going into AI at Disney. Good Lord. This is all kinds of bad. And if you need an idea of how bad this really is, here's the Hollywood Reporter talking about this. On Thursday, the company's biggest legacy entertainment company announced it would be partnering with OpenAI to allow its characters to be toyed with in AI. The inevitable part of this is that Disney CEO Bob Iger hinted several weeks ago that something like this was coming, and most smart money have been involving OpenAI. The kind of social virality Iger supports fits squarely with what OpenAI has been good at with the likes of Sora and ChatGPT. Still, we don't know how soon this would happen, as the details weren't known. One big detail, Disney is paying OpenAI $1 billion for an undisclosed stake in the company. Another detail, a lot of Disney characters will be available as part of the licensing component, but not such that you can see their face. The company is choosing to stay far from that saga after Minefield for now. Also, no voices to avoid a voice actor legal ethical situation, though voice mouth alignment in current models isn't very good or convincing anyway. Yet we're still going ahead and market it to people that way. I mean, that's not me. That's me saying that last part there. But come on, we've had 2 commercials this holiday season that tried to use AI, Coca-Cola and McDonald's, and they've been thrashed by everybody because everybody knows that AI is a bad thing. Like, I'm sorry, it's a bad thing for what Hollywood's trying to do with it. Like, I've talked about this before. I use AI if I sell stuff on eBay, and I don't have the time to put together like a description and all that, because I just want to get the stuff put on there and sold. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put an AI description on there, and it will usually match up to what I want to say before. And even when you go on YouTube and you go to videos, like you'll go to some videos and they'll tell you, like, you know, there's an ask thing, and they'll use AI to give you a description of what the video is about. I go on there, like you'll go on there and it'll ask you to summarize the video using AI, and you know, most of the time they'll do a good job of giving you kind of a detail of what the video is and all that, but I wouldn't say it's something that it's not something I would ever use to describe the video in general. Here, I will just go ahead and put the link in there. Like I'll do it for I won't do it for my videos, but if I want to sell something on eBay, yeah, I'll go ahead and use AI to describe the product in general, and if it matches what I think the product is, yeah, I'll go ahead and just go ahead with that. But yeah, nothing good will come from AI basically dominating Hollywood, because that's sadly the direction we're going to be heading in the next couple of years. I mean, we're already seeing it. Like literally right now, as I'm talking to you, look at this. That same Coke commercial I was just talking about is playing on TV right now. I mean, to its credit, it's better than last year's, but it still looks bad. Like, it still looks like real bad AI. Not Ellie Kemper. Ellie Kemper looks normal, but that's because she's a real person. But it's just the whole idea of Hollywood being consumed by AI is going to be its downfall at this point. Like, screw the Paramount Warner Brothers or Netflix Warner Brothers merger. AI is going to be the thing that kills us in Hollywood in the future at this point, because it really, you can just tell that we're heading down a dangerous path if we start using AI in our TV shows and our movies, and these things that are supposed to look amazing on the big screen end up looking like really bad garbage. Progressive is another one that's been using really bad AI this past year with this really terrible commercial that they've done with all these animals driving cars, and you could tell it's bad. Like, the fact that nobody is looking at this and saying, guys, maybe we should hold off on this until we can make it look as realistic as possible, and nobody's just like, nah, we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. Like, we're heading down a dangerous path here, people, and it's really going to get worse before it gets any better at this point. So, yeah, abandon all hope, ye who enter here, for the next couple of years in Hollywood, if AI really is the future overall. And, yeah, like, and again, look at this. That same commercial I was just talking about is on TV right now. Like, why? Just why? Like, why do we have to use AI for that, honestly? Like, what's the point? But you get the idea here. So let's step away from that, and let's go ahead and get to some stories from the past week that I wanted to cover that I never got a chance to cover on the last show. But let's start off with the first one I have here. And that is the news that Paramount has a couple of movies set for 2028. Now, the bad news is that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin movie is no longer happening, which really is bad. But then again, trying to do a movie based off an R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and trying to sell to people was a tough act to do. And I don't think, and especially a company like Paramount's not going to bother to take chances with that. But new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Sonic the Hedgehog movies will race to theaters in 2028. Paramount has added an untitled Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film to the calendar on November 17th, 2028, as well as an untitled Sonic Universe event film on December 22nd, 2028. Which is interesting because Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is set to come out in 2027, early 2027, so I don't know if this is going to be Sonic the Hedgehog 5, or it's going to be a spin-off movie. Maybe it's a spin-off with Knuckles, or maybe it's a spin-off featuring the Freedom Fighters from the Sonic SatAM series, which probably won't happen. But the studio also announced plans to bring Top Gun back to the big screen on May 13th, 2026, in honor of its 40th anniversary. Paramount is keeping the details for its TMNT and Sonic films under wraps. All that's confirmed is that Neil H. Moritz, best known as the brains behind the successful Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy, is also behind the new Ninja Turtles adventure. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will be a family-friendly, live-action CG animation hybrid to take on the Turtle brothers known as Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. It will be the first live-action Ninja Turtles movie since 2016's theatrical disappointment Out of the Shadows. Paramount since turned to animation with 2023's modestly successful Mutant Mayhem, which has a sequel coming out on September 17, 2027. The upcoming Sonic entry is separate from Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which is slated for March 19, 2027. So there you go. That basically tells you that right there. Sonic has become a valuable property for Paramount, with the first three installments collectively surpassing $1 billion worldwide. And then, of course, they mentioned Top Gun here and all that. So, a couple of movies here based off of some ideas that, you know, the Sonic movies have been pretty good under Paramount, and I've liked every one. I think they've gotten better with every film. Ooh, excuse me. And then we've got a new Ninja Turtles movie coming, so it'll be very curious to see how that pans out in bringing that to life in the new format in the new live action movie in general. But At least we're still getting Mutant Mayhem 2. And we've got that Mutant Mayhem short coming up in front of SpongeBob this weekend, which I'm dying to check out, man. I've heard a lot of good things about that one, so I'm really looking forward to checking that one out. So anyway, that's that first one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one we have here. Oh, this one I wanted to talk about because, yeah, when you see what this next thing is about here, you're gonna see it right in front of your face here. You're gonna see that, yeah. What were you thinking about this one, HBO Max? So HBO Max in the last month got Mad Men for the first time. This was a show that, remember, HBO passed on back in the day. They passed on that show when it was coming on the air, and AMC eventually took it over in general. And it came out onto the streamer in early November. It was not even like mid-November and all that, but no, it came out in November on HBO Max. And then as the month began, we basically got news that as the month of December began, we got news that something was off about the new remasters that they'd done. I've got the story here from Variety. It says the new 4K remaster of Mad Men debuted Monday on HBO Max, and it came with the unexpected barf machine. Variety has confirmed that Lionsgate will soon deliver a corrected version of the Mad Max 4K episodes, although an unedited version of the series was accidentally uploaded to the service instead. Viewers who went to binge Mad Men on Monday noticed some sloppy edits, including one scene in the Season 1 episode Red in the Face where crew members can be clearly seen feeding fake vomit into a machine for the character of Roger Sterling, played by John Slattery. Wrote one fan on X, the new 4K transfers on Mad Men on HBO somehow do not have any of the post-production edits added in, which means you get stuff like this where you can see the crew manning the puke machine after Roger had too many oysters, LMAO. Fans also noticed that some of the episode titles have been mislabeled, which appears to have now been fixed. At press time, the edited episode have not been uploaded as the vomit railer could still be seen. Insiders confirmed that the incorrect files were delivered to HBO Max by mistake. Like, how do you miss that, honestly? Like, how do you not look at this at first? How do you not look at that episode in particular that I'm talking about with Roger puking on the clams and all that? And how do you not realize when you watch that episode that there's guys literally behind Roger, like holding the machine up there? And it's not even close to how they hide. It's literally out in the open. Like, you can literally see it. Like, you see it right here in the photo here. Like, that's an actual clip from the episode that's on there. I fortunately can't find the video on here. Let me see if I can find it on here. Maybe it's on here. Let me see. Is this actually it? Yeah, this is it right here. Like, look at this. Or are they not going to show it? Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is right there in the corner. Look. Like, watch again. Yeah, it's right there. The guy's literally right there. Like, they didn't even try to hide it there. It's just, like, it's ridiculous. And, like, how does HBO Max not notice that when you look at this for the first time? You would think that a company like HBO would have people look at this, or have somebody look at the specific episodes to make sure these are the correct versions. But knowing HBO, they probably used AI to do the whole thing, and nothing ever came from it overall. It's just like how do you not know that when it's literally right there? Like, I don't know. This was a couple weeks ago, so I don't know when exactly the update has been on those. I don't know if they've actually fixed that or not, but it's definitely something where you look at it and go, like, what the hell were you guys thinking by missing out on that critical part there? So, but yeah, that's definitely something that was noteworthy. That was definitely something that needed to be addressed overall. But let's move on to our next story now, which actually has an update as late as yesterday. So Scarlett Johansson is a very busy woman nowadays. I mean, this year alone, she's been attached to the Disney Tangled remake that's in the works now, which apparently is now going to have McKenna Grace starring as Rapunzel. But then we talked about recently her being involved in the new Exorcist movie from director Mike Flanagan, and now she's going to be in the new Batman movie. Now, this is a story that started off last week. This is from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, after spending almost a decade defending the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Black Widow, the Bat Signal may be calling Scarlett Johansson. DC Studios' latest chapter in the Batman series. While it is unknown where things stand in the deal-making process, sources tell Deadline that the Oscar-nominated Johansson is in final negotiations with the studio and director Matt Reeves for one of the new roles in the Batman Part 2. If a deal closes, she would join Robert Pattinson, who is set to reprise his role as the Caped Crusader in the upcoming sequel that Matt Reeves is writing and directing. Johansson has been busy getting her affairs in order for her 2026 shooting schedule, most recently coming on to star in a new Exorcist film for Blumhouse and director Mike Flanagan. Deadline was the first to break that news at the time. Insiders say her team at CAA was working out how she would be able to do both, and insiders now say the schedule has been settled. Now this has been updated since then. That was from December 2nd, I believe, December 3rd. But now there's new details coming out, and it turns out that Scarlett Johansson is supposedly going to be playing Gilda Gold, who is the wife of Harvey Dent. Now, this was confirmed by this was a rumored casting by Jeff Snyder of the Insider, I think it is, but and supposedly it was going to be Brad Pitt starring as Harvey Dent. But if you look online, it's been revealed that Brad Pitt has officially exited talks from that movie, so it's not going to be Brad Pitt playing Harvey Dent right now, or probably not. But no, actually no, it's. Let me just go ahead and read you the article here, because I'm misleading you on this one here, but this is from worldofreal.com, who revealed this story, and it says, some updates regarding Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2 via the Insider. It is being reported that Reeves' film will feature 3 new key roles, a man and a woman in their 40s and an older man in his 60s. According to the Insider sources, those roles are Harvey Dent, his wife, and his father. Dr. Arkham is also said to be appearing in the film, though in a smaller role. Speculation ramped up on Friday after scooper Viewer Anon teased Harvey Dent's return, while industry veterans Chris Tapley posted an image of Gilda Gold, Dent's wife, according to the eyes emoji. Now, this is where Scarlett Johansson's casting comes into the equation. Who she plays has remained a mystery, but none of the trades able to confirm the role. Deadline reportedly suggested she could portray a love interest, while other speculation pointed to Poison Ivy. It now appears Johansson will indeed be playing Mrs. Dent, also known as Gilda Gold. Brad Pitt was reportedly sought for the role of Dent's alcoholic father, Christopher Dent, so it's not playing Harvey Dent. That I misjudged her on that one. However, despite the rumors, Pitt was unable to fit the role into her schedule due to a conflicting commitment to Edward Berger's The Riders, which is expected to be a lengthy multi-country shoot. Reeves has previously stated that The Batman Part 2 will not be just a serial killer movie, but that its villain has never been portrayed in a live-action movie before. Johansson's casting as Gilda now makes sense, as the character is revealed in the comics Batman The Long Halloween to be the holiday killer. Snyder is also right to note that the current release date, October 1st, 2027, now feels intentional. If Reeves is indeed crafting a Halloween-themed movie, there's no better time to release The Batman Part 2 than in October. As for the other 2 key roles that Pitt out, it'll be interesting to see who else Reeves has in mind, and also who might play Harvey Dent, previously played by Aaron Eckhart in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. So there you go. That's the latest updates on that. And it does lead a lot of opportunities for stuff that they could do here. Because I've seen the Batman Long Halloween direct-to-video movies, and those are really good. And I think that's actually one of the better DC animated movies as of late. So I'm very curious to see how this whole thing pans out. The Batman was my favorite movie of 2022. So yeah, naturally, I'm going to be very excited to see how this whole thing plays out. But hey, it looks like we're getting one step closer to this coming together finally. We've been waiting to see the Batman Part 2 for a couple of years now, and it looks like we're finally going to get that at some point here. So, moving on to our next story. So the news is that Paranormal Activity is getting a new reboot, and not only that, they have already they've already put in a new director for this movie in general here. So, kind of like with the other story, we have a couple new caveats to this story here. So let's go ahead and let me see if I can find both stories here. I've got the latest one, so where is the next one here? Here it is. So this first one is from last week, and it was the news that a new Paranormal Activity movie is coming to the screen, the movie coming after the merging of James Wan's company Atomic Monster with that of paranormal producer Jason Blum's Blumhouse. The feature has Paramount on board as a partner to co-finance, co-produce, and co-distribute the movie. Oren Peli, the filmmaker behind the 2007 film that grossed $194.2 million on a shoestring budget, will also produce via Solana Films. Blum is producing the film as well, with the theatrical feature said to be a priority for both Paramount and Blumhouse Atomic Monster. So that was last week, but now there's an update on the director of this movie that they landed to do this. So they're moving on this pretty quickly. And it says here, less than 2 weeks after it was revealed that the studio had partnered with Blumhouse Atomic Monster on the horror reboot, The Hollywood Reporter has learned that the project is now landing a director, rising Canadian filmmaker Eon Tucson, who is in the final negotiations on the gig. The new Paranormal is a rebirth of the found-footage horror franchise, first released in 2007. The 7 movies have been huge money makers thanks to having low budgets. Well, of course they have. The original film was made for only $15,000 and then given a new sheen and a new ending by DreamWorks, then part of Paramount, for $200,000. And cited as one of the most profitable movies ever made. It also helped launch Blumhouse into the horror powerhouse that it is today. Paramount is on board to partner as a partner to co-finance, co-produce, and distribute the new chapter. Oren Peli, the filmmaker behind the 2007 film, on a shoestring budget. Okay, they basically just giving you the same stuff I just mentioned before. But Tucson seems to be the kind of director for whom the franchise is tailor-made. The Toronto-based writer-director made live-action virtual reality horror shorts, which racked up millions of views on YouTube and even a showcase at South by Southwest. He then made a splashy debut this summer when his feature Undertone premiered at the 29th Fantasy International Film Festival, where it won the Audience Award for Canadian Movie. Tucson found himself in the middle of a bidding war for his movie, with A24 coming out on top with a mid-7-figure deal. Undertone's subject is paranormal activity. The story, inspired by some of Tucson's own experiences, centers around a paranormal podcast co-host who must care for her ailing mother. When she mysteriously receives audio files regarding a couple's possession, she falls into a rabbit hole of paranoia. Sound design is integral to the movie, and Tucson has described it as found audio, not found footage. The movie is now heading to the Sundance Film Festival next month. Landing the gig is likely a dream come true for the filmmaker, as he listed the original Paranormal as being number 3 on his list of movies that creeped him out. The Exorcist and Blair Witch are number 1 and 2, respectively. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this guy can bring to Paranormal Activity. I mean, there's really not much more you can bring to it that the other movies have sadly kind of lost along the way. I mean, the first couple of Paranormal Activity movies were really good, but then starting with 4, and then with the spin-off they did, and then the Ghost Dimension, and then the spin-offs they made for Paramount Plus, yeah, they kind of lost their way in general overall, and it really is something where there has to be a new spark they have to bring to the table to the series in order to make it work. But now is the perfect time more than ever to do a new Paranormal Activity movie. With horror movies on the rise in 2025, Final Destination came back in a big way this year. The Conjuring came back in a big way this year. We're about to get Scream coming up next year. I mean, there's a lot of hype right now for a good horror return. So it'll be very curious to see how this one pans out. Hopefully they know what they're doing here. But I mean, if they can find a way to get back to the old Paranormal Activity ways, I think they can find a way to make the sell people better. So. But Paranormal Activity, sadly, is not the only thing coming back overall, because apparently we live in a time and age where everything has to come back, no matter how long it's been since the last thing. So here's what Sony is doing now. So Sony is bringing Men in Black back for a brand new movie. It says here on the article from Deadline Hollywood, after successfully relaunching the Bad Boys franchise, Sony Pictures looks to be ready to dust off its black suit and shades as a new Men in Black film is now in development. Sources tell Deadline that while no title is attached yet, Bad Boys for Life writer Chris Bremer is on board to pen the next installment in the sci-fi comedy franchise. Plot details are unknown, but insiders tell Deadline that the idea is once Bremer had finished the script, original series star Will Smith would be one of the first to receive it, in hopes he would reprise his role as Agent J. It's unknown how the character would be featured, whether it's a starring role or more of a supporting passing of the torch type role we've seen in films like Creed, but the plan is to have the character back in the first draft. That said, sources stress that Smith is not attached to the project and will not commit to anything until he's read a script. Like the Bad Boys franchise, Men in Black is seen as a valuable property as the studio, following the success of the 1997 original, the franchise has earned a collective $1.9 billion globally at the box office, counting the original, 2 sequels, and 2019's reboot Men in Black International. The new film is still very early development, so no producer deals are in place, but all previous MIB movies were produced by Walter F. Parks and Laurie McDonald, with Steven Spielberg executive producing. As for Bremer, the writer has been a go-to scribe after writing the past 2 Bad Boys films that have earned a collective $837 million at the global box office. He has also become a go-to writer for Smith-led projects, recently penning the next Netflix action thriller Fast and Loose, which is expected to be Smith's next film. So yeah, it's pretty much, Men in Black definitely is one of those movies that definitely really deserves a reboot at this point. And especially after the last Men in Black movie was such a gigantic failure on so many levels. I mean, that was a terrible movie. that was basically riding on the success of, hey, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson were great in the Thor movies. We can bring that to our Men in Black movie. And while they were the best things about that movie, the rest of the movie was just not that good and really lost a lot of that creative muster that the other Men in Black movies had. And it was really one of those things where it's just like, what was that? What was that supposed to be? And it just didn't work. It was a movie that was just a failed attempt to try to reboot the Men in Black series for a new generation, and it just didn't work overall. So hopefully, with this new film in general, we could maybe find something here to essentially keep the Men in Black series in general, just simply get it back on track at this point here. If you want to do a Passing of the Torch movie with Will Smith in there, I think that's probably the great direction to go with, and especially you got the writer of the Bad Boys movies involved in this too. Yeah, that's definitely something where it could definitely work out in the film's favor overall. So, anyway, let's move on to our next story. Before we get to that next story, we have some breaking news right now. This has never happened before on this channel, but it's 9:58 here as of the time of recording this, and this just popped up about 21 minutes ago. This is from Deadline Hollywood, and I saw this when I was looking for the Men in Black story. Police are at Rob Reiner's house with 2 dead bodies reported. Homicide detectives are on the scene. Law enforcement are at the home of prolific actor-director Rob Reiner right now in what is currently a rapidly unfolding situation. 2 people were found dead in the Brentwood mansion. Authorities confirmed to Deadline, though law enforcement did not disclose the identity of the deceased. They were identified as a 78-year-old man and a 68-year-old woman, respective descriptions that match the age of Reiner and his wife, Michelle Reiner. LAPD homicide detectives are on the scene right now. Law enforcement sources tell Deadline. So, yeah, this is a developing story right now, and Rob Reiner, it's mentioning it's his house and it matches the description. So this could be rather concerning here. But I will keep you posted on this as we go along here. If I get anything before the show ends, I will definitely give you an update on that. But this is definitely a breaking story, and we've never had this on the show before, so. We'll continue to keep updated on that as we go along here. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get back to the next story I wanted to cover here. And that is that the Oscars could potentially be moving away from ABC. This is a story from Deadline Hollywood, once again, and it says, NBC, the former home of the Golden Globes, is interested to become the future home of the Oscars. Deadline confirmed with sources last month that NBC Universal has had conversations with the Academy about taking in the award show after its current deal with ABC expires after the 2028 ceremony. The move is logical since the NBC Universal brand has not had a major award show since dropping the Globes in 2023, with the company nurturing their own fan-based People's Choice Awards franchise. In the live entertainment special arena, NBCU has had a lot of success in the past few years with the venerable Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which had been breaking viewership records, most recently drawing a monster 34.3 million viewers across NBC and Peacock last week. NBCU is joining YouTube, which threw its hat into the Oscar ring over the summer. Amazon also had been rumored as a potential candidate to carry the Academy Awards though the extent of its interest is unclear. Netflix, which streams the Actor Awards, the Screen Actors Guild Awards, as a way to bring stars to the platform, has not pursued the Oscars and has no intention to do so, sources say. The Oscars have been in place since the spring, when the Academy's exclusive negotiating window with the company's longtime broadcaster ABC lapsed. Sources say at the time that the Academy was asking for more money than what the network was prepared to offer in the form of a license fee increase, leading to a stalemate and the organization's move to shop the marquee awards to other networks and platforms. According to sources, ABC partner Disney and the Academy have not had conversations since, with the door open for the Oscars governing body to re-engage with its longtime broadcast partner. Meanwhile, Disney is preparing for the arrival of the Grammy Awards in 2027. So, yeah, the Academy Awards essentially could be on the move, which, as it says in the article here, CBS recently let the Grammys go to ABC, which will happen after this next ceremony coming up for CBS in February, and then the Grammys go to ABC in 2027. So, and not to mention, ABC is getting the NFL back, too, in a couple of years, with the Super Bowl coming as part of the deal with the NFL and ESPN. So, yeah, this is good. This is a very interesting time for these live television shows in general. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see NBC get the Oscars back. People forget that the Oscars used to be on NBC for a long time back in the day. Like back in the all the way back in the 1970s was the last one that they had on there. And, it wasn't until ABC got the deal in 1973 or 70. Let me see. I'm looking at it right now. The Oscars were first telecasted in 1953 by NBC, which continued to broadcast the event until 1960, when ABC took over, televising the festivities, including the first color broadcast of the event in 1966 to 1970. NBC regained the rights for 5 years, 1971 to 75. So it was 75 that happened. And then ABC resumed broadcasting duties in 1976, and its current contract runs through 2028. So 52 years of the Oscars, potentially moving over to another network in the future overall. So definitely something to keep a close eye on over the next year or so, to see what the future holds for the Academy Awards on television, if it's even going to stay on television, because as you saw, Amazon is also involved in this as well. So we'll see what happens on that front there. So that's the story about the Oscars. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story we have here. And that is the fact that they are indeed moving on with the third installment of the 28 Years Later franchise. And this is coming just after the new trailer for 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, dropped, with the word of mouth on that being really good. And, a lot of people, we had 28 Years Later earlier in the summer, which was a good movie for about 2/3 of it. And then by the third act, was basically just like, screw you. We're not going to give you a good ending for this. And it's going to ruin the entire film for you, which it really did. But the other word of mouth on this one has been very promising. I haven't watched the trailer for the new one yet, but apparently the word of mouth was so good that Sony is moving forward with a new film. It says here, a third 28 Years Later movie is moving forward at Sony. Sony Pictures has decided to proceed with the film following positive fan reactions to early screenings of the trilogy's second installment, The Bone Temple, according to sources familiar with the development. Series screenwriter Alex Garland is writing the script, and Cillian Murphy is in talks to reprise his role as protagonist Jim from 28 Days Later and The Bone Temple. The zombie horror franchise began in 2001 with Fox Searchlight's release of 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle. The influential and intense film grossed over $72 million at the worldwide box office on a reported $8 million budget. Fox Atomic, a short-lived Fox subsidiary, released an initial sequel 28 weeks later in 2007. The sequel had an entirely new cast, and neither Boyle nor Garland were involved. Earlier this summer, 28 Years Later returned to form, with Garland and Boyle returning to write and direct the film. The duo envisioned 28 Years as a trilogy. Sony made the first two films back-to-back before greenlighting the third. 28 Years Later performed well at the box office, opening to $30 million on June 20th and culminating $151 million worldwide. The Bone Temple was directed by Nia DaCosta and releases in theaters on January 16th, but early screenings have evidently given Sony the confidence to complete the trilogy. So yeah, like I said, 28 Years Later is probably one of the worst movies I've seen this year, mostly for the third act. The first two acts I thought were actually kind of good, but the third act really was the thing that it really takes a lot for a third act to completely ruin a movie for me. And the third act of 28 Years Later definitely did that for me, where it is going to be on the list of the worst movies of the year, no question about it. But if the Bone Temple can find a way to bring this back into form here, then there might be some hope for this franchise after all. I love the first 28 Days Later. I like the second one, 28 Weeks Later, and hopefully the Bone Temple turns out to be pretty good. But it's an early sign of encouragement that they're going forward with this trilogy in general here. So I'm really curious to see how this one plays out when it's all said and done. So with all that said, let us move on to the last story I have here, and then I have one more thing I want to cover before we get on out of here. I apologize for that. I don't know what the hell I was doing with that. I was trying to do the Hunger Games thing because this is about the new Hunger Games movie. And about some news that might get people very excited for this. Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson are coming back for the Lionsgate prequel, The Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping. This is a story from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, "We've confirmed that the Hunger Games canon stars Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson are returning for Lionsgate's next prequel, The Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping. While the prequel is set in the world of Panem 24 years before the events of the Hunger Games, there's a scene in the new Susan Collins book where a grown Peeta Hutcherson and Katniss Everdeen listen to Haymitch Abernathy, Woody Harrelson in the original movies, as he recounts the Hunger Game to him. Sunrise on the Reaping began on the morning of the reaping of the 50th Hunger Games, also known as the Second Quarter Quell. The story centers around 16-year-old Haymitch, played by Joseph Zeta. He becomes the mentor, of course, to Katniss and Peeta, a clever and resourceful boy from District 12 who's unexpectedly chosen for this edition of the games, featuring a deadly twist, twice the number of tributes, with 48 children sent into the arena to battle for their lives. The news isn't alarming. Hutcherson has been asked about his return in his new movie while during press tours for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. He says, that'd be cool. No, I know nothing in this world right now. Hutcherson clarified to Brit & Co. back in August. Hunger Games is amazing, and I loved it for many years, and I will love it forever. Sunrise on the Reaping hits theaters on November 20th, 2026. The Pic's first trailer became Lionsgate's second biggest trailer launch in the studio's history, with 109 million views in its first 24 hours, following the studio's Michael trailer, which clocked in 116 million viewers in its first 24 hours. Then I first told you about those trailer stats. Francis Lawrence, who has directed 4 of the 5 Hunger Games movies, which have grossed $3.4 billion all over the world. The 5 novels have... This is not a well-written paragraph, because it says here, Francis Lawrence, who has directed 4 out of the first 5 movies in the Hunger Games franchise, which has grossed $3.4 billion all around the world, period. That's literally how it ends. Like, it doesn't even tell you if he's coming back to direct it, which I think he is, but... The 5 novels have sold more than 100 million copies globally and have been translated into 52 languages. Sunrise on the Reaping sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide in its first week, marking the biggest debut for any title in Collins' Hunger Games book series. In the US alone, the book has sold 1.2 million copies, more than twice the opening sales of The Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, and over 3 times that of Mockingjay. Oscar-nominated screenwriter Billy Ray adapted Sunrise on the Reaping. Nina Jacobson and Brad Simpson produced for Color Force, while Cameron McConomy executive produces. So, the Hunger Games movies overall have been really good. It's cool to see they're getting Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson back to do this, even if it is for probably a cameo or like a wraparound scene as Woody Harrelson's character's telling the story in general here. But it is kind of interesting to see them bring this back into the fold here. So I'm really curious to see how it works with it. I like what they did with the last Hunger Games movie. If they can continue on that path, we could actually have something here. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with that one in general. So let's go ahead and move on to... Those are all the big news stories from the last couple of weeks. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing I want to cover here. So this last thing I want to cover here is not really anything related to like any movie news or anything like that, but just something really cool that happened this past week, and that's the fact that, I've been waiting to see if MeTV Toons was ever going to make it here to the States. It's been out for over a year now. I've been seeing everybody online talking about it, just like, I've been going online seeing, when is it going to get to Pittsburgh? When am I going to be able to see this? And, it's just like, it's only a matter of time before it happens. And, yeah, I was really getting concerned that this thing was never going to come out anytime soon. But, lo and behold, this past week we finally got MeTV Toons. And I was so happy about that. Like, I was really happy. I was like Eric on South Park when he bought the amusement park and going on the water ride, and you see a close up of him just coming off of the thing. He's just like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Like, that was me when I first heard that news. It was just like, finally, I can get to see what everyone's been talking about. And I've watched the first week, and I will definitely say it has definitely lived up to my hype and then some, because, yeah, this channel is pretty awesome. Like, this literally feels like old 1990s Cartoon Network. Like, if you watch Cartoon Network back in the 1990s, you saw the shows they had on there, like the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, all these Super Friends, all these classic cartoons, Popeye, Woody Woodpecker, they're all on here. But not only that, you also get all these different other shows that haven't been seen on the TV for a long time, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even though that was just on Nickelodeon a couple years ago. But like Yogi Bear, Scooby-Doo, all the Hanna-Barbera classic cartoons. They have all these blocks. They have a block on weekends for like all these animated 80s shows, stuff that hasn't been seen on TV in a long, long time, like Police Academy, the Real Ghostbusters, Pac-Man, Silverhawks, Mr. T, Ed Grimley, Beetlejuice is on here. And now they've had all these different holiday specials and movies they had today The Stingiest Man in Town, even though they cut out half the songs in some of those segments they have on there. They had the Richard Williams Christmas Carol on today. They've had all these. Like, this really does feel like what Cartoon Network used to be like when it was first coming onto the air. Nothing but cartoons, and not just like newer cartoons and all that. No, it's classic cartoons from all across the board, with a little bit of a mix of some newer ones too. Not all over the place, and not like now Cartoon Network, where it's just where 95% of the schedule is Teen Titans Go. No, this right here is old school Cartoon Network, and I love every minute of it. But there are some notable flaws we kind of need to address about this, and that's the fact that, you look at Cartoon Network, you look at MeTV Toons, and you're watching it for the first week. So, I have the I keep the TV on. I go to work and I come back, and then I notice the channel isn't working. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is like a one-time fluke or something like that. So I have the channel on when I'm going to bed. I wake up the next day, channel doesn't come on. Like for some reason the channel just doesn't come on as much as it should. But as soon as I hit the as soon as I hit the button on my remote, it comes back on. Like I don't know what's going on with that. It's like the channel for some reason here cannot get specific shows on there, which is baffling to me. Like I don't understand what that is, but the problem has been less of that as of late, but it's definitely something noticeable when you watch it on there the first time around. And like I said before, sometimes they'll chop stuff out of holiday specials that really feel unnecessary, like The Stingiest Man in Town. Like, it's not a great adaptation of A Christmas Carol. It's the one that's the Rankin Bass one featuring Walter Matthau as Ebenezer Scrooge. And for some reason, they cut the songs they cut the songs in half for some reason. Like it makes no sense whatsoever why to do that, but it really is odd, especially considering that version in particular has a great underrated song that I really do love a lot from that. But the song One Little Boy, and it just cuts halfway through the song. Like the song literally ends at the halfway mark of the song, and it's a completely pointless edit whatsoever for more for more commercials and all that, but it's just it just makes no sense whatsoever. But those are just little nitpicky things overall, but they're definitely noticeable. But it doesn't take away from the full enjoyment of the channel as a whole. It's definitely everything I could ask for and then some. I mean, it's definitely everything that I was hoping it would be, and hopefully it will be that way for the long time now. We won't have what happened with the Hub Network, where it's like that for a couple of years, and all of a sudden it's just like, nope, we got to take all this good stuff away from you. So hopefully that won't be the case with MeTV Toons, but I'm so happy it finally made it to Xfinity. So yeah, Xfinity people out there, so look for that channel. It's definitely out there right now, and it's definitely worth it. So let's go ahead and let me see if I can get an update for you on the story from before about what's going on at Rob Reiner's place here. Yeah, there's still nothing. There's still nothing from the LAPD right now, but yeah, this is definitely getting very alarming here because now as I mentioned before, if you're just tuning in at this point, which why would you be doing that? But Rob Reiner at his house, there was reports of 2 dead bodies there, and they were a man of 78 years old and a woman of 68, which is the same age as Reiner and his wife. Well, now it's been slowly but surely developing that there's a belief that it was actually his son that killed him. Now I'm just going off of what these I'm just going off essentially from what I'm seeing here online on X, because that's the latest updates I'm getting right now. But yeah, the belief is that maybe his son killed him. It says here there's unconfirmed chatter that a family member, possibly being Rob Reiner's son Nick, was escorted off the scene. So there's possibly a probability that his son probably killed them. I don't want to say if this is true or not, but this is definitely something that's very, very concerning overall, and I don't think we're going to get an update on this by the time we get out of here. So if there is an update here, I will let you know. If there's an update here before we get out of here, which will be in the next couple of minutes, I will let you know for certain. But yeah, this is very alarming overall here. So we'll keep you posted on this, and if I need to, I'll cut back in tomorrow. Sorry, I didn't pause there because of the update. There was a video I had on YouTube that was going to start as soon as I switched over to there. But what I'm trying to say here is that if we get an update at some point over the next couple of days, I'll definitely come in with a short video coming up before then, and we'll talk about it then. But yeah, it's not looking good right now for Rob Reiner right now. If this rumor if what I'm hearing is true, so we'll take a break here, and for you it'll be just a couple seconds, but I will go ahead and give you my recommendations, and then we'll get on out of here. In terms of new titles this week, it's mostly catalog titles again, but a lot of good catalog titles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is getting a nice looking Arrow video release this week. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is coming out on Criterion for the first time ever. Boogie Nights is coming out on 4K for the first time ever. There's 4K debuts for Leaving Las Vegas and Babe and Jarhead, with some nice looking sets coming out. And also Babe Pig in the City, which I think is a very underrated sequel. Let's see what else we got here. We got the Andy Kaufman documentary, Thank You Very Much, coming out. But like I said, it's mostly just catalog titles in general here, and I don't think we're going to get any No, we'll get a couple of new releases before Christmas. We'll touch on that next week, but yeah, in terms of new stuff this week, it's mostly catalog titles from Arrow and Criterion and new 4K releases in general. Kino Lorber's got some new stuff. So yeah, definitely a lot of catalog titles in general worth picking up if you haven't gotten any of these already. But with all that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. And like I said, we'll keep you posted on what's going on with Rob Reiner, at Rob Reiner's house right now, because that's been the developing story over the last hour or so. But it is not looking good right now. But I'll give you an update if we have to on a separate video coming up here within the next day or so. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe button, notification button. Check out our last episode and check out the playlist as well. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. So with all that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, we are out. I told you I would give you an update if I found out anything before the time this video got uploaded or tomorrow. But there you go. The rumors are true. Rob Reiner dead tonight at the age of 78 years old in an apparent homicide at his home. This is a story that broke at 7:35. It is literally 10:46 right now. So this is literally, I'm seeing this for the first time ever. So yeah, the rumors sadly are true. Rob Reiner, who directed such beloved Hollywood classics as This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, and When Harry Met Sally, after starring in the trailblazing sitcom All in the Family, died Sunday along with his wife Michelle in their Brentwood home. TMZ reported he was 78 years old. Reiner and his wife, 70, were found dead in their home at Chadbourne Avenue, with the couple suffering lacerations consistent with a knife, law enforcement sources tell TMZ. The Los Angeles Fire Department had to be called to the house at 3:30 p.m., and LAPD Robbery Homicide Division detectives were investigating. And really, this is about as tragic as you can get with this. This is a guy who has been behind so many classic movies. We've talked about a lot of his bad films too, like North. But, you know, this is the guy that gave us classics like This Is Spinal Tap, The Princess Bride, Misery, A Few Good Men, The American President, The Bucket List, Flipped. You know, these are all terrific movies. And, of course, as you see there, he was also behind Castle Rock Entertainment, the company that gave us Seinfeld. You know, these classic movies we still watch today, like City Slickers, The Shawshank Redemption, Waiting for Guffman, Miss Congeniality. I mean, this is a guy who... This is one of those great examples of a guy who went from being a television star to a well-respected director who never really got his true respects in terms of, like, Academy Awards. Like, he never was nominated. I don't think he was ever nominated for an Oscar, and I know he never won one, but yeah, this is a really tragic story. And yeah, he was very much one of those proponents of the Republicans and Trump in general. But regardless of who it is, man, I mean, this is still a very tragic story to talk about. And his last movie that he made recently was the Spinal Tap sequel, which I just got in the last week. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm very curious to check it out now. But yeah, regardless of how you feel about this guy in general, regardless of how you feel about his beliefs and all that, this guy really was a truly talented director, an entertainer in general. And there was also reports out there that maybe his son was the one behind it. That's his son right there, Nick. But yeah, just a really, really tragic thing happening here as we're getting out of here on the show. But yeah, there you go. The rumors are true. The late, great Rob Reiner and his wife are dead tonight. Rob Reiner died at the age of 78, his wife at the age of 70. My thoughts and prayers go out to the Reiner family. Just tragic.